Welcome to Good Vibes TV. I'm your host, Leslie Klein, here to help you raise your vibration so you can thrive. I'm so excited today. My guest is Ron Morehead. He's a world-renowned Bigfoot researcher who produced and recorded the Sierrasounds, which are the Bigfoot vocalizations he recorded in the 70s in the Sierra Mountains of California. So please welcome Ron Morehead, coming to us from North Carolina. Ron, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for inviting me. I like it. Yeah, it's fun. It's always fun. Yeah.
Yes. We met at one of the Bigfoot festivals that happens, a fairly new one in Townsend, Tennessee. And you were just coming out with your Quantum Bigfoot book. And I just love how you are connecting the science of quantum physics to explain the Bigfoot phenomenon. So tell us, let's start with, how you got started with Bigfoot in the Sierra Mountains and how that all happened.
Yeah. Well, it was 71 when I got involved in it. These guys friends of mine had been hunting this area. I wasn't a hunter at the time, and they had been up there actually since 1958, but they went in early just to check out because it's kind of a sanctuary for them. It's 8 miles in the wilderness, 8,400 feet in elevation. And they came out with this story that something was up there, some monster of some type. They come out and told the other guys, which I wasn't one of them, hunting group. And they all went back up. One guy got so frightened when he heard these things, he just left him a note and said, "I'm out of here." And he came back down the valley where we were, and the wives were all waiting, and the guys didn't come out when they were supposed to the next day. So they told him he really needs to go back up there and see if they're okay, if they got hurt or something happened to them. And Bigfoot was not on anybody's radar at the time. And so he said, "I'll go, but I'll only go if somebody goes with me." And that was me. So I got involved in the group that way. That was 1971. And so that's how it got started with me. And I saw the tracks, I heard the sounds that they had recorded, because they started taking cassette tape recorders in with them just in case it happened again, and it did. So again, they didn't know what they were dealing with, and neither did I, but our vague thoughts of Bigfoot came in because we knew about the Patterson film from years before. And so we thought because it did leave a huge track there in the mud because it's springtime, and they see something like that, and you hear something like that, and you witness it for yourself. And these guys were all very credible people. I mean, these hunters, very straightforward camp, very sober camp, no drinking or drugs, nothing like that. And we were church members. I was one of the church administrators, actually, of a huge church. And so was Bill McDowell, my partner. He and I are the ones that packed supplies in with the horses and mules. And so I got involved in that way, bought my horses, got involved as a hunter too the following year, and just started trying to figure these things out. First thing I went to was biblical references to giants, and expanded from there. And since then, 50 years ago, I've been doing this now. And I think I put a few dots together, and I believe like Tesla does, what one man calls God, no one calls quantum physics, because they're synonymous. As you get out of the three-dimensional realm that we're in, and there's more going on, a lot more going on that we just don't see or feel or touch. Like Newtonian physics says, everything is measurable. Quantum physics isn't measurable. Found that out when I asked somebody to tell me how far it is in the universe. I couldn't do that. But it got me into what quantum physics is all about. And I'm not a physicist, but I certainly am. I call myself a citizen scientist, I guess you might call it, because I got into this subject about 12 years ago, I guess, and just been learning from it ever since, because there's no end to what you can learn.
Right. So in the book, Voices in the Wilderness is the first book that you wrote, but you also included recordings. And I have, if it all works out here, I have a recording. This is, I want to play just the disagreement one, the one that you called disagreement, because it's so powerful. And I know, I think it scared some of the people that were there. So, and this is not meant to scare people, but to really understand what Bigfoot is all about. And it seems like when they first encounter people, maybe, or from what I could tell from your book, it seems like they kind of try to scare you a little bit to test you out or to see where you're coming from. Perhaps they're dealing mostly with hunters that are coming, coming for that intention that they could be harmed with their guns and all.
Mhm.
But if they find other people, it seems like Joan Ocean that you mentioned in the book, who communicated clairvoyantly with the dolphins, she also had encounters with Bigfoot that were very different.
Mhm.
But let's see if we can hear this recording.
Yeah, if you were inside a little shelter, a little hut, which we were, like a group of trees with nothing but deadfall up against it, and those things just right outside making any sounds, it would kind of like give you something to think about. But we're all heavily armed, and we wasn't going to shoot at them unless they attacked us or came in through those walls. So anyway, that was 1972 when those sounds were recorded by, I might say, Alan Berry. He's the investigative reporter we took in from 1972, and him thinking it was a hoax actually experienced it himself. So he got a first-hand grip on it, or tried to find who was hoaxing this, and if they could, and they never could find that out. So, and no one has since, because it wasn't hoaxed. So
So
these are,
he became a believer.
well, I would think so. He passed away in 2012. We became good friends. At the time, we weren't, because he was accusing all of us of trying to pull something, and so some people thought he was a little bit off base there. And but anyway, he was serious. He had a master's degree in science, so he was trying to figure out how science, Newtonian physics, could answer some of the things going on up there. How these things can do what they were doing and still not leave any sign other than their tracks and their vocalizations. And most of us got a little glimpse of one once in a while. Al Berry never did. He would live quite a ways away from where the site was, so he didn't get down there quite as much as I did. Like Bill, we both lived in the San Joaquin Valley. This is way up in the high mountains, Sierra Nevada mountains. So, anyway, Al was a good man. He's the one that fostered the studies, because having a master's degree in science, he knew he had to get the science behind this, and he finally found a PhD in electronical engineer. He was an electronic engineer, and he did a year-long study on them, and said there was no manipulation in them. They were not sped up. They were not slowed down. They were not manipulated anyway. There was no 60-cycle hum, and that was a big deal. And he presented his paper and his note to Anthropology of the Unknown in British Columbia in 1978, I think it was. Well, that wasn't enough to get academia on board totally with it, because there was a huge symposium up there at the University of British Columbia. But it is what it is, and anyone can tear it apart if they want to, but they've been trying for 50 years now. Can't do it. Since then, we've had other studies done on them, and they all turn out, they're not fake. These things are real.
Verify, yeah, they're
The
real.
big deal is where it took me. It took me in to try to figure out the anomalies associated with them, which is quantum physics, I think. Because, again, Newtonian physics was not answering the enigmas going on around these things.
I have a recording of what you call the Al Berry recording, because one of the things that you say in the book is that they have vocalizations, that you understand them to actually have their own language. And
well,
it's
been established and proven that they do have a language by a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy to transcribe sounds to see if it's a language or a code or whatever, see if there's any manipulation in it at all. And he says there is a language. And the first study we had with Dr. Curlin at the University of Wyoming, he said that they represented an animal 8 foot tall compared to the human vocal mechanism. So anyway, it gets into some deeper stuff, which we'll get into in a minute if you like. Yeah.
Is it all right if I play this
Oh, sure.
audio recording? Okay. It's just fascinating to hear. And, people can get this and all the other ones in your first book. But here's the
And on my
Albury recording.
website too, I have 2 CDs in there. My website.
Okay. And I also have that recording, the one where you were interacting with them.
That was 2 years after that one you just played. But yeah, it was an exciting night. But
And you said that this is when you actually saw Bigfoot for the first time.
yes. Well, Bill and I came into camp to bring supplies in on our horses, mules, and he was getting the packs undone while I was trying to fix something for dinner to eat. It was just about getting dark. It was dusk, and when we started hearing the whooping sounds and the pounding sounds and different sounds going on, we knew that was them. In fact, we saw a big, huge track on the trail coming in, and no one else had been in there yet. So we knew probably they were around, but the next day we knew that they had got there before we did. And I found that out from a track I found next to the doorway shelter. And
How big was the track?
I think it was 19 inches. Yeah.
Okay.
And,
In the book, it said that you had from 18-inch to 24-inch tracks that you've seen up there.
Right. And this one we found right outside the shelter, I opened the door is just a log between 2 big trees. It's what the doorway is. And I came out and saw this thing to the right of that, and it had Bill's dust cover, which he didn't realize he'd lost it going into the shelter that night. So I knew it hadn't been mashed down, so the track had been made prior to us getting there. And also there was some fresh twisted off alder up on the roof of the shelter, which we found that day. And they'd been twisted off over the spraying pan. They were that big around, huge. A human could not twist it off like that. They were green. We knew they were fresh because we had just re-plastic. I say re-plastic because we put plastic over the top and then deadfall on that to keep the rain out with our shelter. And these things, all the other brush that we put up there during that summer was dried up. This was fresh. So anyway, that was exciting. I thought, that was the night. They were trying to be friendly, I think, and trying to say something to me. I don't know what, but I started mimicking back at them, thinking, underestimate what we're dealing with, really. I got to say that, because we had no idea how intuitive they were. We were learning, I got to tell you that, but because they could outfox us every time we tried to set up a camera trap or something. They seemed to go around it. And the only thing we got to capture was their recordings, and which is shown to be why I'm with you today.
Right. Well, here is that recording where you actually interacted with them.
Hope I ain't saying nothing bad to them.
That's
amazing.
Actually, that's the night I recorded the samurai cry, they call it. And one was behind me, I think it was the big male, and he comes shooting down through the trees really fast, and down to where we think there was 2 others, a female and an adolescent. And I got the adolescent recorded too, and it just, yeah.
Time for a break. When we come back, we'll learn more about Bigfoot. Welcome back to Good Vibes TV. My guest today is the world-renowned Bigfoot researcher, Ron Morehead.
Well, anyway, Matt Moneymaker from BFRO.org, he coined that sound when he heard it in 1995, I think it was. And
Samurai sound?
Yeah, he coined a samurai. It sounded like a samurai crying there, and it kind of got that term going because it's a pretty popular website. And so that got it going. People get a hold of me all the time. I heard the samurai chatter,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how that sounded.
It's so interesting. So, The Voices in the Wilderness was your first book, and then your most recent book is this Quantum Bigfoot book. So, what got you so interested, or how did you get to quantum physics to help decipher what was going on with these? I guess where Bigfoot would disappear, or a hunter would say that they shot him, but there was no evidence.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, the enigmas going on up there just couldn't be answered, like I mentioned before, with classical science. Classical science is Newtonian physics, and it just wasn't telling us how this stuff could be happening. You hear these sounds outside the shelter, you think our barrels are being tore up, and you go out there and nothing's changed, so it's all stopped, and you don't know how to answer that. You don't know how to answer a big wooing sound up above you when you can't determine the source of it. A lot of things were going on that we just couldn't see how they could be doing that. So Al Berry, who had a master's degree in science, like I said, he said, whatever you do, stay with science when you talk to people about this stuff, because they're not going to believe you if you get outside of regular science. Well, you have to get out of regular science to figure it out. And finally, I ran across quantum physics, and that was 12, 13 years ago, maybe. I started, more than that. Started studying, how things really actually do work on this planet. We live in a three-dimensional environment, but there's more dimensions going on. We only see within 420 and 770 terahertz. That's our visual frequency, and everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. That's Nikola Tesla said that, and it's been established mathematically. But energy, frequency, and vibration. We, at our most minute level, are energy. And energy vibrates at a frequency. So Einstein said you find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. Well, wow, that's a big statement. How do you find the frequency of something? I think that's somehow some miracles work, is you find the frequency, tune into it, and you can change its matter through the energy that your consciousness is putting through there. And that's another story altogether, how you get into that. But it's a long, interesting subject, actually. I encourage anybody who wants to know more about everything, how the universe works, how we work, who we are as a people, what we're doing here, get into quantum science. And you don't have to be a physicist to get into it. Just understand that there's things going on that you can't see, feel, or touch. Not materials, not physical necessary. And it's just, that's what we live in, and that's what we have to go through to experience. That's what we're here for, to experience things. And that's how we have to get our vibrational frequency higher so we can get out of this third dimension. And I know when you die, and energy can't die, according to physics, energy can't die, it only changes forms. So if you're a religious person, you can say, well, I'm going to go to heaven when I die. Well, you hope anyway. And, and if you're a physicist, you're just going to change forms. What that form is, a lot of people believe multiple embodiments. You have to come back to finish experiencing what you need to experience in this lifetime to graduate into, to understand another dimension, get higher. We have access to all those dimensions in this lifetime, but until you get yourself cleaned up, and I mean all the way from your heart to your brain to your pineal glands, you have to get all those things lined up and balanced to really experience, I think, what's really going on and to understand it. And that's where the fourth dimension of time comes in.
We're totally on the same page, because when I saw you speaking at the Bigfoot Festival, you were talking about quantum physics. You were talking about Bigfoot as a species really to be respected, because that was a thing that I just was so against with a lot of these Bigfoot, shows and stuff. They're portraying Bigfoot as a monster to go kill, and this is not the way of being a human. It's about coming from a place of love and compassion. My show is all about frequencies. David R. Hawkins scale of the map of consciousness scale talks about, fear being on the bottom, love being on top, and how we raise our vibration. My background, I had a metaphysical store for 16 years and a new age cafe. So I've been studying, I was raised Catholic, then was a born again Christian, then got into metaphysics, which is basically the spirituality side of it. And then with quantum physics coming in to explain the science of what shamans and spiritual teachers have been talking about for millennia, it all comes together. And what's amazing to me is that Bigfoot kind of is in the middle of all this. This being that some people say, well, actually, you talk about how the maternal DNA of Bigfoot is actually human, like 99% human. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Academical science has thumbs down that because there's a human component in it. And of course, when this geneticist did this, she said there was a human side. And she got off into the religious deal of the Nephilim, the stuff like that, and the angelic beings, and which wasn't wrong, but it was wrong for her to do that as a scientist, I think, and that's why they gave her a thumbs down. But they said it can't have a human component in it because we're the only humans going on, and if it's got a human component in it, it's been contaminated. So that's where they went with it, and that's where they stay today, even though there's been some other geneticists that said the same thing now since more DNA has been found. And one of them was found up above Bhutan and the Himalayas on 17,000 feet, eDNA, it's environmental DNA, and that came out human also, the maternal part. The problem is there's another part to that called the nuclear part. The nuclear part of the DNA is the male counterpart, what made that, I think, number one, there's not all these Bigfoot things we call Bigfoot are not the same. I think they've been genetically modified by different aliens depending on their agenda. So some are good and some are bad, depends on what they've been programmed to do or what they're meant to do. Some of them have been here longer than Homo sapiens, I believe. And I think we came in afterwards, and we are made in the form of, light beings. That's what we're supposed to end up in. You do that by raising your vibrational frequency to the 9th dimension, and you can do that anytime. And I say anytime you're ready inside to do it, you can do it. Get into the Anunnaki. I went all the way from biblical teaching to the mythology of the Greeks and mythologies, and get back into all the way into the cuneiform texts from Mesopotamia, and that's the first known written language that we've got. And most all religion or writings have a core from there. So if you get into that, you find out that all kinds of things have been changed, by the time it got to King James and his version of our Bible. So it's not that you shouldn't believe the Bible, but you got to look deeper into it, what they really was meaning, the core of different meanings, what they were really saying. So that got me into quantum physics because, like I said earlier, what one man calls God, another one calls quantum physics. It's based on it's not based on Newtonian physics, which again we realize in our third dimensional environment. But anyway, that's where I go with it, and it gets even deeper than that. But it's fun. I got to, it's a lot of fun because you find out what you're really all about and why you're here. It's all about vibration and how you raise your vibration, how you get there. So you want to be the best you can be. You want to get to where we're designed to be. We're designed to be not spiritual beings, and that's because we have some Anunnaki influences. And you get into the cuneiform text, and the word Elohim is what's used all the time, and that's always in the plural form for God. And yet everything from good to bad is related to a God in the Old Testament, Well, there were several Anunnakis messing around then, but they all said God. And I don't want to change anybody's religious beliefs here, but maybe they need to be changed if you're stuck in one box, because we've all been conditioned. And I mean conditioned. We're all been taught certain things. That's, some people are taught to be cannibalistic, and that's okay for them to eat somebody, I guess. But if you're conditioned in a certain religion, it's hard to get out of that. So I was religious, and I mean, I was raised in church environment, and I was very stout on scriptures, stuff like that. But you got to stretch out a little bit and see what else you can put in that box, or else make your box bigger, so you can understand how things really happen. how things are going to happen.
Yeah, there's more and more coming out with UFOs, and then the government, the UAPs.
Mm.
So people, we're at a point we really have to open up our minds to these other possibilities and not be fearful of them, but realize we're just one species, and there are many, many other species, whether it's Bigfoot or other extraterrestrials, and there are many different types of civilizations. And there are good ones and there are bad ones. There are ones that are beneficial, and the ones that are malevolent. So,
Mhm.
so that's a totally different worldview, and I think that's why perhaps the government has been trying to hide these things, whether it's Bigfoot or UFOs. They weren't, coming out with the information. I did have a question because I think I've read somewhere along the line that there was a theory that perhaps Bigfoot was ex- was created or experimented by the military and DNA manipulated, and kind of like an experiment gone wrong. And that's one of the reasons that they're afraid of humans. Ha- Have you heard that, or is there any
I've heard it for several
credibility?
years. Yeah, well, I don't think they're
Okay.
afraid of humans. They just they stay away from them. Nothing's supposed to really interfere with our karma, what we're supposed to experience. That's our decision to go this way or that way in every form of life that we have. And military, I mean, the government, if they can't control the narrative, they're going to make fun of it or hide it some way. And I think they know about Bigfoot, but they also know, yeah, Hitler was trying to do a superhuman. He was trying to cross ape with a human. So
Oh,
it's not a new thing for that to be going on. And I got actually a geneticist. Well, I got information from a geneticist that was working for the military, doing experiments from a military installation that had these things in captivity. And there's frequency that you could call them in, and it just this is all secondhand information, so I don't know, but I have heard of what you're saying. And I've also been into Alaska, as you know, where supposedly the more aggressive ones, bigger ones are there. And that gets into what we talked about maybe earlier, Portlock, Alaska, when I was taken up there a couple of years ago. And that's quite a place. They definitely have something going on there, I believe. And might be going back again this summer, I'm not sure.
yeah,
But,
I know the show, they call it Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. The place
mhm.
is Portlock, Alaska.
Right.
And I guess the last episode I saw, they asked you to play the sounds, the vocalizations that some of the ones that we just heard. You played them, and there were responses from the Bigfoots that are living there. What else can you tell us about that area?
I told them, most people don't want, I mean, most people think they want to blast these sounds, but you don't know what they're saying. If you blast an aggressive sound, you might be challenging them, or you might be asking for a mate. You got to be careful there. Anyway, yeah, things happen there, but I got to tell you too, they came storming out of that woods after down to us. There's a guy there with a big gun. He would just like probably they happened when the villagers were there in the old days when they were cutting too many trees. They were massively over timbering it, and they were also mining it, and they were overfishing it. I mean, I seen the pictures of the fish they were drawing in. I think they just didn't have respect for the land and didn't realize it needed respect. I mean, just because the timber was there, they could take a lot of it. Very remote area, Port Lock is. I'm fortunate I got helicoptered in. It was fun, and I got to tell you, but it was exciting. And but yeah, I think years ago, this got abandoned. The village got abandoned in the late 40s, right around 1950, I think it was. So yeah, if this thing's going to come storming out of the woods because you're cutting out all the trees and you're taking all their fish and you're taking the gold that they may be here to mine, you don't know. Uh, they'd have probably growled at them or something, and these guys would have seen a big hairy monster 12, 15 foot tall, and they'd have shot at it, and then they'd have got mangled. And I think that could be the root of it right there. That was my suggestion. Or just show respect for the property like we're all supposed to do. But we're a warring species, the humans are. And we tend to shoot things we don't understand and kill things we don't understand. And I'm against that. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you should shoot it or try to kill it. But that's what's going on a lot. And we've got to change that whole vibration of this planet, really, and get the people people's minds where they're supposed to go and have peace and not destruction. But we are a warring species, and we've got to change that vibration.
Right. We need to evolve. We
That's what's
must evolve.
We have it, yes, exactly, and we got to evolve. Until you evolve, you're not going to change.
Right. Time for a short break. When we come back, we'll find out what UFOs and Bigfoot have to do with each other. Welcome back to Good Vibes TV. I've been talking with Ron Morehead, the OG of Bigfoot researchers. Check this out. Now, are you familiar with Dr. Stephen Greer?
Yes.
Okay. And have you worked with him at all or talked with him at all?
No, I haven't.
Because he's doing the whole thing on the UFO disclosure,
Right.
trying to get the government to be accountable, bringing the technology of the free energy that can really heal the planet and get rid of poverty.
We're in a very interesting time, Leslie. I mean, very interesting time. And I hope I'm around to see it all. I think I hope that. Because it's a bit of a thing coming up towards us. UFOs are being revealed. Bigfoot is being seen more and more and more by more and more people. I mean, some of these events, there's supposed to be 20,000 at this next Townsend event.
20,000 people?
Yes. Humanoids. Some of them might be hybrids, you don't know. You know.
Right.
We're hybrids. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a big deal. And I speak at a lot of these conferences where there's several hundred and sometimes a few thousand. One in Florida where you're at now, I think, Ocala, I think, is coming up again this year. That's a good one. Last time I spoke there a couple of years ago, I had 5,000 there, I think it was, or was it 2,000? I don't know. I lose track of those, but there was one in Gatlinburg where they had 5,000. I mean, every seat was taken. So more and more people are interested in this because even in the last days, our master in the New Testament, Christ, he said there would be like it was in the days of Noah. So the first thing I started doing was raise religious. I started like, how was it like in the days of Noah, for this? I want to see what's going to happen. Well, aliens were here. They're coming down, the fallen ones, and that's the Anunnaki now, we know. Well, excuse me, no, the Anunnaki. Well,
the Nephilim, was it the Nephilim?
It's what they created.
The giants.
Yeah, right.
But the Anunnaki, they were the ones, I think, that manipulated the DNA and kind of experimented and kind of created us.
Yes.
That's my understanding, and that's like the later.
Even the Bible said, let us make man in our image, so
right.
Kind of puts that a little bit in there too. And that's what quantum physics does. It kind of tries to couple and put science and spirituality together. Because this is science, what I try to get into, how these things do what they do. How can they disappear? Well, Dr. Paul Dirac won the Nobel Prize in 1933, establishing mathematically what Einstein had already said, which was matter and energy are interchangeable. So if you can find the frequency of anything and change its matter, well, Dr. Dirac won the Nobel Prize for antimatter, and that's the direct exchange, just like I said. And that was established by CERN in 2012 when they had a particle change in energy. And that was a big deal. Most people don't realize how big a deal that was, but that's huge, because that pretty much put a foundation on that statement. So how does Bigfoot disappear? I think they, through their vocal mechanism, which is much more expansive than ours, much more. And I say much more. I have no idea how far they can go with it, but they can change their their energy, or their matter into energy, they would go out of our perception, which is limited by the frequencies I told you before. So if that happens, their track waves would stop because they'd have no more density. And things like that happen. You don't see it unless you see energy. And some people can see energy. That's why they'll see ghosts sometimes too, because ghosts are in that fourth dimension of time, in my opinion. And we all have to go through there before we get to the fifth and sixth, where a lot of people are going to go, but we're designed to go all the way into the ninth, which is a light being. That's who we're made after. But yeah, it's been fun being with you, Leslie. And
Yes.
maybe we'll see each other again someday in one of these conventions. Are you going to be in Townsend?
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you, Ron, so much for this opportunity to interview you and give us so much insight on this beautiful phenomenon of Bigfoot. That's, I want to say, not something to fear, but something to appreciate and have good connections with if we're going to go out there looking for Bigfoot.
Well, again, fear is your enemy. It's your only enemy, because you only fear what you don't understand, what you don't know. And that's why so many people are out there trying to shoot one of these things. And why do that? Just because you don't understand it. And we would have shot at one had they attacked us in that shelter up there. I got to tell you, we had guns. But somehow I knew who I was as a human even then. That you're supposed to have dominion on this planet, right? None of these other animals are supposed to have it. Well, you don't know the difference between a gorilla and a Bigfoot. They can all the same.
Right.
It was exciting. It still is. Yeah.
Well, thank you for recording those Sierra sounds, because that's like that. That was like the foundation for all of this Bigfoot research that's been happening. So you're the original.
If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be with you today. Yeah. So I think Alan Berry, because he fostered the sound studies, and, at least the first one, and that was important. Big hurdle. So thank you very much, Leslie, for having me on today, and
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
And I'll see you soon. Definitely in Townsend. Thank you. Thank you for watching. If you got some value from this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to get the word out and raise the vibration of the planet together. Peace out, everyone.